Hey everyone, we're sorry we didn't get to do anything for you guys on the channel for May the 4th. We know that Tales of the Empire dropped, and it was obviously the 25th anniversary too for the Phantom Menace. But rest assured, we were doing something for May the 4th. It just happened to be the Star Wars marathon of episode 1 through 9. We got to see it up at Regal Irvine Spectrum. It was a great time. We're going to have a vlog out for that in the next coming days. But we still wanted to react to this Acolyte trailer. We also got to see the little bit of the preview of the choreography, a lot of the fighting in the theater itself, which is really cool. But people have been telling us this Acolyte trailer's got a lot of new cool things, and we just want to have a chance to at least give you guys a quick reaction to it and just some of our thoughts around it. Definitely feel the excitement building up. So, yeah, we'll get into the second trailer here.
Last night, a Jedi was murdered.
The studio that brought you, like, they
Oh,
don't know
Jedi
it's
Temple.
Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace. But that peace,
It's a very interesting set design for sure.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of our first confirmation earlier that she is a Force user,
Yeah.
an assassin, and then now.
She was my student.
A little bit
Yes,
of
and now,
backstory for sure.
and then now we know she was, once a fallen Jedi. So
I like the ship design, some pretty interesting stuff here.
Vernestra finally getting some lines.
Oh,
some sort of shift to tip the scales.
okay.
It's time.
That's a cool shot.
Face the past.
Whatever they're going through there, like, reminds me of Andor a little bit. That shot of that ship.
Destiny is not decided for you by an anonymous force. If you want to pull the thread,
Ooh, okay.
change everything.
Same lightsaber shot. And just the amount of
Villain
lightsaber
reveal.
action.
Ooh.
So we've got.
Oh, he's got like a almost like
Like-
anime-esque mask with the
Yeah,
teeth.
it kind of reminds me of the Batman Who Laughs
Yeah.
from Dark Knight Metal DC Comics, but it looks like a Kylo Ren mask too. Like, honestly, if you look at it, it's almost the exact
Yeah.
same back as Kylo Ren's mask, but with like this like Joker smile on the front.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely anime. I could see anime inspired, like Death Note esque, Chainsaw Man, like that style, that type of like smile with the teeth. But yeah, really, when I saw it, I was like Dark Knight's Metal for sure.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy about this trailer compared to the first one. Like there are still like some repetitive shots, obviously. There are some
Yeah.
things that are repeating, but like you can see the scale of this one for sure. There's a lot more backstory, ship design. Vernestra actually gets to have a moment here, so High Republic book fans can be like, oh yes, she's not just like a cameo.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I really don't know what to make of like a lot of the locations right now. There's one place that looks like a dam. Let me pull that up here. Like here the Jedi are like walking to something here, all of single file, and then in this shot here, like they're in like some debris or
Yeah, it looks
something.
like almost little tiny asteroids. Like, it reminds me a lot of like the colors in
Yeah,
it. It remind me of the Aldani scene in Andor. Like, just that the way it's shot. I think this trailer especially, and I remember one of the big complaints from people last time. Although I never really felt like this, but last time a lot of people were like, "Oh, it looks kind of like cosplay. It doesn't look like it's at the high budget." I think these CGI shots of ships and stuff look very high budget in my opinion.
yeah,
Like, this seems to be where a lot of the budget's gone. And it does, the set design, everything, it looks otherworldly, which is something that I'm pretty excited for, especially with High Republic. We know about the expansion to the Outer Rim and slowly colonizing further and further away from the core and the mid rim. So just that idea of creating these more alien civilizations, making things look really different, unsettled, all of that should be a big selling point of this show, especially as opposed to things we've seen, right? Like Kenobi and or these types of shows they take place right in the heart of the Imperial era. So everything's a little bit more, yeah, it's grungy or dirty, worn down, but it's settled. This looks very natural
Yeah.
and open.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does feel like locations are gonna play a big part to just the story itself. Like, I was always expecting to see like a Jedi temple, and obviously there's that shot too of the Jedi temple
Coruscant,
on
yeah.
Coruscant. Yeah, and Coruscant looks a lot shorter than I would
Yeah.
expect it to be, only for like 100 years before. So I am very curious if it's like this whole level comes about, because we know in both canon and legends the Jedi Temple is built on top of a Sith shrine, so it might be pretty interesting to see if this is just like an area that is now being like reclaimed and now becoming a little bit more grown outside of just the Jedi Temple spot, because now it's like been established for a while and everything. But I found it
Right.
very interesting to see that it's got the familiarity of what we expect, but not necessarily like the skyscraper-esque feelings that I
Right.
would expect to be around here. I thought that was pretty interesting. The one that really caught me off guard in this trailer, it's this one, right? Like the Jedi,
Hmm.
his eyes go black and he sinks. He's in the presence of the witches, it seems like,
Right.
from the shot just before. And I mean, they they seem like they're being posited as at least the secondary villain slash like
Hmm.
pr- main villain backstory contributors here. But
Right.
I am very curious, like what they're doing with the eyes. They're like it's like a form of mind control or like sacrifice. What's going on here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like
I don't know. Very curious.
I feel like there might be some misdirection in this show, that the where the, like the Jedi kind of are thinking these witches are the main culprit behind it all, and they might have some type of strong connection to our Sith acolyte, but ultimately it's going to tie back to the Sith. I mean, and seeing that, so that dark sider we talked about at the end, just because somebody has a red lightsaber doesn't mean it's a Sith. It could be a dark side user, could be some type of acolyte to a Sith, like the title is. We think it's this girl, this assassin, but it might not be. The title might be referring to somebody else in a way, because this is, as we've talked about a bunch of times. I mean, being the big Plagueis fan on the channel, this is not Tenebris unless they, species swapped. So, and if they change Tenebris' species, I think then you might as well just create a whole new Sith
Yeah.
instead of using Darth Tenebris. But we know Tenebris is canon because he's one of the Sith legions in the Rise of Skywalker, as like almost all the Sith are. I think this is somebody who maybe is not even the top dog yet. Maybe we could see the top dog at some point, but as we've seen in a lot of things, like even in that Plagueis book, right, there are levels to it. We see it all throughout the Clone Wars, where Plagueis is the top dog, then you have Palpatine, and then Plagueis is very happy for Palpatine to train Maul to be Palpatine's Sith apprentice, because while Palpatine hasn't defeated Plagueis yet, then Palpatine can use Maul as an assassin for their own good. And so maybe this is the Sith apprentice to a Tenebris, maybe the precursor to Plagueis. There's a lot of different ways we can see this going. So, for those of you who want to say canon breaking, lore breaking, we'll just wait until we watch the show. But I do think this is an interesting design. I always love dark side helmets and stuff too. So I think another pretty cool one added to the ranks here. I can't wait to see it in action. And overall, yeah, let's also talk about that fight scene that we saw. For those of you who have seen the Phantom Menace this past weekend, you got to see this whole choreographed fight sequence with Carrie Ann Moss and the assassin, and so that scene was a lot better than it looked last time in the trailer. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of the action we saw in the previous teaser, a lot of it was very much so like dodge based, somebody fighting, doing a bunch of moves, and the Jedi just kind of moving their head, dodging around. And that happens in the sequence, but it's a lot more fluid, and it's more of like I'm the master here, you're the one, you're trying to kill me, but I'm way more elite than you. That's kind of the air that Carrie Ann Moss gives. And it's very Matrix-esque in that way. There's a lot of slow-mo, obviously an homage to her character in the Matrix, I felt. So I thought that sequence worked pretty well. Obviously, we haven't seen the context of it in the actual show, but when we eventually do, I think it's a pretty cool sequence.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, because I think there is a moment where Carrie Ann's Jedi character is caught off guard by Amanda Stenberg, like getting a kick in. and then she like kind of like sharpens up again. She's like, all right, no more playing around. But it's not just like wire work for these characters. It's definitely they're using their surroundings, like Amanda Stenberg when she's fighting off some of these other characters in this. I would say it's more like a pub more than anything else, or I don't think it's like a casino. I don't think it's like a bar per se, but she's like kicking tables, she's like hitting people over the head. There is
Hmm.
physicality to her action. So it's not just like pure wire work. So I think I'm appreciating that. And then Carrie Ann Moss's character is also like running off of walls and everything. So
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more video game esque than it is movie esque that we've seen so far from Jedi. But it does make a lot of sense, especially when you're able to be in the supposed prime so well balanced, so well trained, able to keep things moving pretty fluidly. So
Very much so.
I'm excited for it. I'm not too worried about the title necessarily of this either, because now that we've definitely seen that, okay, it's not just like some person with faking a red lightsaber. It is definitely someone who is a threat here.
Right.
I'm more curious, and I'm liking the monstrosity look of it. I think from the Sith that we've seen in movies and more established Sith in both canon and Legends, they have like this almost faceless mask where it's like, yeah, you can see some elements that remind you that they're human or something, but I've never really seen one that leans into like almost like this psychotic monster,
Hmm.
right? Which I think will be pretty interesting. And I think that in some ways, at least like from a visual design, visual language perspective, I want to say that's leaning towards maybe even this character being the acolyte, already being like a dark side acolyte, almost like a Ventress or
Right.
someone else at the start of Clone Wars who isn't necessarily on track to becoming a Sith or given the option for having a Sith. So there could be like layers to this. I mean, it could also obviously be Amanda Stenberg's character. There was also a poster that came out, like a Disney Plus banner that showed two of her. So I don't think they would just copy her face side to side. There's a chance it could be like twins or something in the story that hasn't been even revealed by this trailer. This could just be an entirely different pathway of like, wannabe Sith, or like a Sith that maybe was originally the main lineage, but then Tenebrous, Plagueis, Venomous, that line starts to take over in the next couple decades if we see like a season 2 or 3 of this show. But regardless, I'm a lot more confident in the show with this trailer than I was with that first trailer. That first trailer, I was just like, it's fine, but it didn't really tell me the details or show me anything
Right.
really interesting. And this one, there's just too much to go through, like just location with characters, to like really make a judgment for what the story is going to be, because it feels like there's going to be big flashbacks. It feels like the Jedi are still going to do Jedi things. We have Manny Jacinto's character being revealed to at least have talked to Amanda Stenberg's character at some point too here, which is pretty surprising. Like I didn't expect him to be the one to say the the Sith version of the Jedi Code, right? I was,
Right.
the piece is a lie, right? So there's a lot of juicy things in this trailer that I think have got me a lot more hyped.
Yeah. And I hope we get all that stuff, like I think for me, one of the things, it's cool to be set in the High Republic, but I think for me, one of the things I was hoping when they initially announced the show before we started to hear what it was really about was like that true Sith acolyte perspective the entire time, where you're seeing nonstop Siths, that like barely any Jedi, like the Jedi are almost villains of the show. And that could happen in a season two. I think this is a cool perspective to go with as well because of how inundated with the High Republic we've been. It's very nice to finally see some of that, especially in the close of it, and this being the year of the Phantom Menace. We're getting that type of connection, which I think is very neat. And so, the more and more we get, the more and more nods we get to the Sith. Like I'm getting pretty excited about this. We can mess around with canon a bit here. I mean, obviously, Mundi's line too in the Phantom Menace. It's an overestimation, even if we want to go off of Legends, because the Sith, the Jedi didn't know about the Sith less than a millennium before the Phantom Menace, because Bane takes place in 1000 BBY, which is less than 1,000 years before the Phantom Menace, and then also in the second book, that's when they actually think they kill Bane, which is like 20 years after that. So they're not. It's not quite 1,000 years. So Mundi is, you know, reaching. He's exaggerating with his number as well. But on top of that, we've seen in the Plagueis book in Darth Maul's Shadowhunter, just to use Legends examples, but also if you want to look at canon with the Darth Maul mini-series, we've seen plenty of Jedi come in contact with Sith in those 1,000 years. They just all die. So we
Yeah.
can kind of assume that if they do come in contact, they will die. And Yoda is also, that's another thing too. Last point here is Yoda is very much so aware of the rule of two, which would mean that the rule of two had to get gotten explained and realized by the Jedi prior to that 1,000-year time period. So you could say that was Bane 1,000 years ago, but you could also say maybe there were other examples of people they came in contact with Sith ideology, but maybe weren't really a threat like Bane was 1,000 years when Ki-Adi-Mundi is actually referencing that. So those are my ways I think you can work around it as well. And again, these are characters that we don't know anything about, are brand new, and they very well could all just die. And
Yeah.
the Jedi are so delusional at the point we get to in Phantom Menace that they don't really even believe that Qui-Gon's even talking about a Sith when he brings up somebody with a double-bladed red lightsaber who attacked him in the desert. You know, he says he thinks it's a Sith, and they're like, the Sith haven't been seen for 1,000 years. I think that's who you're dealing with, and that's what you're looking at here. So hopefully when this show comes out in a month, now we're in full swing. The Bad Batch is over, full swing in marketing for this. We're going to see a lot more from the show because they're really going to have to market it well, considering it's all new characters in a brand new time period. I think we'll see some more hints of who and what our Sith really are prior to just the show releasing.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. But I think that's where we're going to close off our Acolyte trailer reaction. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Hope you guys had a great
Mm-hmm.
May the 4th weekend. Tales of the Empire review is coming. We're just trying to
As soon as I
catch
get
up
back
and
home.
right. We're like we gotta recover. We have to get back home. We gotta watch everything. The marathon was awesome, so you'll definitely see our perspective of that. Hope you guys at least got to see the Phantom Menace this weekend. Stay tuned. A lot of great stuff coming. We're gonna have live streams. We're gonna have shorts. Community polls and bracket are still going for favorite Star Wars characters. Star Wars lads, we're putting out stuff for you guys, so stay tuned and hopefully in a couple weeks we'll start getting even more Acolyte stuff for be able to like talk about and dig into just like here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.